think it's free. It is free. But I think you have to sign up. And of course, I'm on there, Mr. Brian Logan. No, you don't have to subscribe to the magazines. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to factor this, all right? And I think that's all I said, right? Just factor your trinomial. So the one important thing that I want to remember about trinomials is I'm going to use ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so let's tell me it's a trinomial in a quadratic form. So a quick little just kind of tip. And like I said, I'm going to kind of make this like a straightforward, follow this path, solving your trinomials to make sure it's factorable. James. All right, so we want to follow this path, and it's just a very straightforward way to understand how to do factoring when you have your coefficient of a is greater than 1. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create what we'll call like the diamond. I'm going to multiply a times c and b. All right, if you guys can just kind of remember this is a very way, like foolproof way to always check. So I do 8 times c, 6 times negative 10, which would be a negative 60, and then my b is a negative 7. All right, so then I need to look at this and I see, all right, what two numbers multiply to give me negative 60, but then add to give me a negative 7? So you can look at all the factors of negative 60. All right, you could have negative, well, it's going to be negative 60, so it'd be negative 60 and 1. Or it could be negative 1 and 60, right? But I'm just going to do one set. So you could do negative 6 times 10. You could do negative 12 times 5.
Glad you're here. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You could do negative 15, 4, negative 30 and 2, and 12, 5, and you could do negative 3 and 20, right? Now, obviously, you could I could swap these, right? These could all be negative and these could be positive, right? So there's a lot of possibilities. However, just look at the numbers. What numbers have a difference of 7? And don't worry about the plus minus, but what numbers have a difference of 7? Those don't. Those have a difference of 4. Those have a difference of 11, difference of 18, difference of 17. But you can see these two have a difference of 7, right? So it either could be negative 7 and 5 or 12 and negative 5, right? Well, 12 times. When you look at this, which two of these added up give me negative 7? And yes, that is my solution, negative 12 and 5. So I can write negative 12 and 5, right? Now, everybody's so used to always saying, oh, these are your two answers, x minus 12 and x plus 5, right? That's when everybody gets mixed up, because before, when we saw when their a was 1, that's what we did. We just took these two numbers and we said x minus 12 and x plus 5. The problem with that is x times x does not give you a 6a squared. So there's a couple ways we can do this. And I'll do it 2 different ways. And you guys can determine which way is confusing and which way makes sense. Okay, one way is we can rewrite this formula with a, what was it, a 12a plus 5a minus 10. So instead of writing a negative 7a, we could write it like this. All right? The other way you could do it is what we call the box method. Where you take your a, which is 6a squared, you take your c, which is negative 10, negative 12a, and plus 5a. I don't need to write the plus. Okay? So there's 2 different ways we can kind of do this. You're really doing essentially the same thing. This is a way just to organize it differently. But all I did was I rewrote my middle term as 2 different ways. So one way I could do for this way, the reason why I'm doing this is factor by grouping, right? Group the first 2 terms. Group the first 2 terms, then say, what can I take out of here? And you could say, well, you could factor out a 6a, right? 6a, you're left with a minus 2. Then here, I can factor out a 5, and I'm left with a minus 2. then, let's see here. Then, from here, you can factor out an a minus 2 times a 6a minus 5. So that would be your two factors. Okay? Over here, how do I solve it from here? Well, it's pretty much the exact same thing. Remember, when you're doing the box, you want to say what two numbers multiply to give me, you know, what's inside my box. So what two numbers multiply to give me 6a times 2? Now, easily you could say, well, 3 and 2 work, right? Well, if I put a 2 there, 2 times what gives you 5? That's going to be a fraction, right? What if I put a 3 there? 3 times something is going 3 times a fraction is going to give you 5, right? So we're going to have to come up with new numbers. How about if we did 6a times a? Well, that will work because a times what gives you 5a? 5, right?
That's right.
That's what?
When you multiply negative 5 and negative 2 together, it doesn't equal negative 8. It equals, negative 10. It equals positive 10.
Where did you get
So
the
it's
positive
gotta
10?
be a plus 5 and then a minus.
Are you talking about in
2.
here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a plus 5. Where am I looking? Where did I miss the?
Right by your finger.
It's a plus.
Oh, that's a plus 5. Yes, thank you. Yeah, 6a, that's plus 5. Thank you. Because, that makes sense, because a times what gives you 5a? That's 5a, right? And then over here, 6a times what gives you negative 12? Well, that's a negative 2. And then you can see, here are my two factors. Okay? So that's two different ways to factor a trinomial when you have a is greater than 1.
Yay.
And you guys have a lot of practice to practice that method.